Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I am talking to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started, and what are they doing to stay there, to accelerate in that leadership lane? And today, I'm super excited because I have a special guest. Her name is Kim Pisciotta. She's a certified HR professional with a PHR and a SHRM-CP. She's the Director of Human Resources at Gemmy Industries. She is also a former HRSouthwest conference director for one of the largest HR conferences in the country and the 2020 recipient of HR Executive of the Year for Mid-Sized Company. And I would just say, hey, welcome to the show, Kim.
Well, thank you so much.
It's so good.
You make me sound important.
Well, you are important. Oh, man. So we've known each other for a very long time. You've served through DallasHR organization. And so we're going to talk a little bit about volunteering. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about Lifelines and a whole lot more. But I'd like to start the show just sharing a little bit about Gemmy Industries and how you serve your customers.
Gemmy Industries is a B2B company. Our customers are your big box retailers like Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, Target, just to name a few. And we are the ones that design and distribute those cute air-blown inflatable decorations you see people put out in their yards for the holidays. But that's just one of our product lines. We also do projection lighting. We have a line of animated plush items. And if you want to go old school, we're the ones that were responsible for Big Mouth Billy Bass back in the day.
By the way, every time I go visit my father-in-law in Duncan, Oklahoma, I hit that Billy Bass button because he has a Billy Bass. It's fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I've been out to your facility. It's just an amazing facility.
It is. It is. It reminds me of the best way I know how to describe it is like working in Santa's toy shop. And I'm constantly amazed at all the new ideas that come out of here. And our goal is to spread a little joy, put more smiles on people's faces.
Yeah, I love that. I love the word joy. Hey, I want to get into a lot with you today. But before we get started, I love to start the show by just hearing more about our guests. And I would love for you to share the Kim Pisciotta story. Like, where did you grow up and how in the world, like, did you get into HR and leadership?
I grew up in DeSoto, Texas, home of the Fighting Eagles. For those of you who know Dina Culpepper, she's also a DeSoto alum. And so that's a little fun common factor there.
Okay, so first of all, I did not know that. I know Dina really is the woman behind the curtain at Texas SHRM and a lot of other associations. She's amazing.
Right, she really is. And I really got to know her better through HRSouthwest. We'll talk about that later. Coming out of high school, I thought I wanted to have a career in accounting. I liked math and I love problem solving. And when you get to make things check out and balance, it's just such a good feeling. And so I started out majoring in college in accounting. And I started out in junior college. And when it was time for me to transfer to university, hook 'em horns.
Okay, just to let you know, I knew that was coming. So those of you that are listening right now, she just flashed the hook 'em horn sign. Big Texas Longhorn fan. I love it. I love it.
So it was time for me to transfer down there. But at that point, I had my second semester. I believe it was Accounting 102. And I had even served an internship as a bookkeeper for an attorney/landlord. And the bookkeeping part, I was okay with. But when we started getting into managerial accounting and the real nitty gritty stuff you learn in 102, I was just like, this is not what I see myself doing for the rest of my life. So the internship, I'm grateful that I had that opportunity because it would help set a foundation for me to grow on. But it also helped me know, no, that's not for me. So when I transferred down to UT, I conveniently did not tell my parents that I decided to switch my major to my true passion of drama. And so it was really funny when I got down there. I got set up in my dorm and registered for my classes, and they're like, so what classes are you taking this semester? And that's when I told them I changed my major. So I was already locked in. But I've always had a real passion for people and what drives people, what motivates people. I've often asked people who migrate into Texas, what brought you here? Because I've grown up here. I've lived here my whole life. So in drama, you don't think about it that much, but you really do have to have an appreciation for people and understand their motivations, because you do character developments before you really start getting into it's more than just memorizing the lines and acting them out. You develop your character and have to understand your internal motivations. So I went through 2 years of that. And then my parents were like, okay, kid, you're 21. This is where the boat stops. You can stay down there and finish up, or come back up here and, we'll help you get on your feet, charging you low rent, but, it's time to cut the cord. And I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? Well, because of my accounting background and a friend, I was able to get a job as an admin assistant in the accounting department for Wyatt's Cafeterias, way back when it was still around. When I was working, I was only there for a year before they filed for bankruptcy. But during that time, there were opportunities for anybody who was willing to come in and help plug in hours for people that worked at the different units when holidays came around, because there were deadlines to meet. And I was like, sure, extra money. There were opportunities, and I was like, sign me up. And because I was willing to help out, I got exposure to working with a payroll system. Well, after they filed bankruptcy and my job was eliminated, I knew this was my first exposure to anything human resources. And I thought, this seems like something I could enjoy. The focus is on people. You take care of the people. So it's what I wanted to do. Leaving Wyatt's, I went through a staffing agency. Going through a staffing agency, I told them I wanted to focus on human resources, and I was able to bring in that experience working with the payroll software. So in 1 week, I interviewed for 3 companies. I followed up on Friday, and 2 of them were interested in me. So I actually got to pick who I went with. It was my first employer. They liked my experience. They were a small company, and they liked my experience that I had with payroll. So I was able to bring that and support them in accounting and fixed assets. They taught me about fixed assets. At the time, the company, it was Nissan Diesel America. They had about 42 employees, and I was there during some really great years. We grew, almost doubled in size to, I want to say 82. At that time, I knew I was interested in human resources. I switched my major again to human resource management, and I was able to work on all things human resources while also fulfilling responsibilities for accounts payable and fixed assets. And while I was there, the company almost doubled in size, which was still small, but it was really a bit much. It was challenging for me to manage all of that. So I got to focus on just human resources. And I was so excited. That's when I was like, yes, this is it. Before I left Nissan Diesel, I was serving as a liaison between the president of the company and our corporate attorneys on some deal negotiations. And that was great. Then the dot-com bubble burst happened. So things started to shift, And Nissan diesel was seeing some changes because the dollar did not have the same strength that it did over the yen. And I had just got my degree. I thought, this is a good time for me to start looking. But before I did that, I went to the president. At this point, I'd been there almost 5 years. And right before I graduated, that was when they handed out promotions. And I told the president, and my boss, he was a really great man, but he was a little soft-spoken. I had the confidence to go to the president and I said, I've been working on my degree in human resource management, and this is what I've done. And this is the time of year that you hand out promotions. I would appreciate your consideration in promoting me to at least an assistant HR manager from administration specialist. And I said, and if you don't think that I'm quite there yet, tell me what you're looking for so that I can do it and be deserving of that title. And so he kind of laughed at me because it was a Japanese-owned company and he was very stern-minded, but he was impressed that I was willing to approach him with that. And he didn't give me the promotion that I wanted right then because he wanted me to finish my degree. But once I graduated, he gave me my promotion. And so I was on top of the world. So the lesson there was, if you want something, ask for it. You might not be told yes, but if you don't ask for it, you might never get it.
I love that. Oh, that's so good. First of all, just having the courage to ask for that promotion. A lot of people don't quite, they want to ask for it, but they just don't ask for it. Number one, but number two, most importantly, is if I don't get it, where are the gaps and where can I improve to get, that's fantastic. And here you are today. How long have you been at Gemmy?
I have been at Gemmy now for just over 20 years. I joined in October of 2000. So I've seen a lot of growth, change. I've been here through some world events like 9/11 and the Great Recession, and it's pretty amazing. Gemmy is also a small-sized company. We presently have about 91 employees. And that's pretty much where we like to be at. It seems to be not too much and just enough.
Yeah.
And it's still at that nice sweet spot where I can walk through the halls and still know everybody by name. And I'm very big on that because I like to say good morning. And, that was another big thing for me in deciding to work for a small size company. I never wanted to be a number in the system. I wanted to be a person. And I wanted other people, my coworkers, to be people and know them by name and share, a few things with them. I've seen baby showers, wedding showers. At this point, there are some employees here that I've spent more time in my life with, just working with them 5 days a week, than I did with my own family growing up, when you think about it.
Yeah. That's absolutely fantastic. And it's interesting how you're also part of our Climb leadership group, right? So we have a book club online called Climb, Connect, Lead, Inspire, Mentor, and Build. And we recently had a guest on our show, the VP of HR for La Rosa Pizzeria and SHRM board member Steve Brown. And he wrote the book, HR Rising and HR on Purpose. And one of the things that he talked about was the importance of connecting with people, in particular, what you're talking about, walking slowly through the crowd, building relationships with your employees. And I think that's what you're saying, is that you find a lot of value in that.
Yes, very much so. With the employees here, I've always taken their situations very seriously. That we're people, first of all. And you always hear, people are your greatest assets. Yes, that's true. But Sometimes I think when it comes to leadership, sometimes we forget about the importance of communicating expectations. And when you have to have some of those disciplinary discussions, what I like to hear is not just, this is what you're not doing, and these are the consequences. I want to know, did we communicate clearly the expectations so that they understand, first of all, that they're not meeting them, because they could think that they're doing just fine. And second of all, are there any challenges going on that we need to be aware of, or can we help them? Can we provide them another resource? What can we do to help them be successful? Because if they're not successful, we're not successful. And especially when you work for a small company, you've got a lot of responsibility in each role.
I love how you talked about leadership. If they're not successful, you're not successful. And that's a big part of leadership, and making sure that you're doing everything you can to develop that person, or to put the resources in their hands, or to communicate, make sure you're in alignment with, do they want to do this? Right. Well, let's talk leadership. One of the things that I do like to ask my guests is, there's so many different ways to define leadership, but if someone says, hey, what is leadership to you? What would you say to that?
To me, leadership is support. It's listening, being able to listen, being genuine with a person, showing respect, help, not being the problem solver so much directly, but the guide to it. With my staff, I listen to them, and I've tried to help them grow in their HR roles from scratch. And I listen to them. I'll put them through pop quizzes, sometimes putting them on the spot.
It sounds like class. I love it.
I know. And, but it's not so much, I want to hear the right answer. I want to hear the right answer and why. What is that reference to? Because that way I know it's sunk in. And the reason for that, and they've always teased me about this, I always say, if I were to die on the way home from work tonight, it's not probable, but it is possible. You need to know this so you have good continuity for the business. So I'm trying to share with them everything that I know and give them the confidence that they need to be successful and continue on. And so I try to help them. I don't want to spoon feed the answers. I want to help them think about, okay, this is the right answer, this because of this, or this isn't right because I know that conflicts with this, and be their guide towards their success.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, 2020 was a tough year. We all know that. COVID and just the world was so heavy, and especially for HR professionals. I'm just wondering, do you feel like your leadership role has changed since COVID? Are you leading any differently?
A little bit. I've had a few more employees want to come talk to me sometimes. There have been a couple that have referred to me, or at least 3 that have referred to me as a corporate counselor. I am not licensed, disclosure, but I'm not a licensed therapist, but sometimes people just need to be able to talk to someone that's going to understand. And so I've opened my door quite a bit more and helped a few others this way. But I mean, even in other ways, thinking ahead and, how are we going to make our office, our very open office environment, ready for when we wanted to bring people back in? And even, one time I was late to a coffee chat because we were trying to figure out how to get toilet paper back in the office so that we could, at that time, we only had about 2 weeks of the toilet paper in stock. It was hard to come by. And I was like, well, we can't bring people back into the office and have to turn them out again because we're out of toilet paper. So it took a little teamwork
Who would think about those kinds of things? I mean, there was so much to think about. One of the things that I wanted to bring you on to talk about today is that a few years ago, I was part of the Dallas HR mentorship program. I know you've been part of that as well. And I was mentoring a couple of incredible students here in the DFW area. And since I'm not sitting in an HR practitioner seat, I thought to myself, well, I know many people who's sitting in the seat. So why don't, instead of I sharing my knowledge, why don't I just take them, and I called it HR Around Town. So I took some students around town to talk to some different HR professionals, and you were one of the professionals that we visited. And do you remember that?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
So I brought Morgan by, and one of the things so I was sitting at the table, you were sharing with her, just some of the experiences, and she was like dialed in, listening intently. And one of the things that you mentioned was you said something. It was so capturing that I actually put it in my mile markers journal. And the quote you said was, "Know where your lifelines are." And when you said that, it just really, I had an epiphany, because I started thinking about lifelines. Well, they could be sponsors, they could be mentors. So I want to talk to you a little bit about, lifelines. Number one, what are lifelines, and how did that come about?
I think I came up with the term lifelines from it was the game show Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? I think that might have been it. If you weren't sure what an answer was, you could use a lifeline. And I actually looked it up. I wrote it down here. In the dictionary, it's one of the definitions is something regarded as indispensable for the maintaining or protection of life. And working for a small size company my whole career, one thing I didn't have was an HR professional to report to and kind of show me the ropes. I mean, I was trained on some basics, but not from an HR professional. So I had to rely on, I found out about SHRM and I got a membership. And this was back when there wasn't a whole lot of communication on SHRM Connect. I don't think that was in existence yet. And they had that 800 hotline. And hot diggity, did I use that?
And by the way, for those who don't know, and most of the people, a lot of the people listening are part of an HR community, but SHRM is the Society of Human Resource Management Association. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. When I came to Gemmy, that's when I found out about DallasHR. And I was like, oh my goodness. And I wanted to grow my local network, because things that are good and best practices in New York aren't always the best practices for Dallas. And so I talked to my boss, I told him about it, and he said, yeah, sure, join. And so I joined. This was around 2003. And I went to some of the monthly luncheons. We didn't have HR Connect yet, but I wanted to, and I went to the networking happy hours. I wanted to grow my network and create my lifelines so that if I did have a situation come up, then I'd know the best person right out of my back pocket to reach out to and say, hey, what does your company do about this? And so I started creating lifelines. And a couple of years ago, Bruce, you got to be one of them. But, you never know when you're going to have that situation. So networking is so incredibly important. And if not for building those lifelines, which HR Connect, all the members on DallasHR, and well, now all across the state with having access to HR Connect, those are my lifelines. Bruce, it wasn't just being a member of DallasHR or SHRM. When things really started to change for me and make a difference, it was in 2008 when I'd heard about the HR Southwest conference. I was trying to figure out how to pitch to my boss, how to let me go to conference. I'd never been to a conference. I wanted to learn. I could see the value in it. It was my aunt who told me about it. And I saw there were opportunities to volunteer in it. And so I thought, okay, long-term growth opportunities, and I can get education, shop vendors, network like crazy. I told him, I pitched it, and he said, okay. From 2008 on, in some capacity, I've been at HR or a part of HR Southwest conference, whether as a volunteer or as a vendor with a booth representing another company I helped start. The big thing is volunteering. There is so much support and so much growth that you have no idea is in store for you until you start volunteering. And it was when I started volunteering that things really started to shake up and happen and move in a positive direction for my career. And it was because a lot of the nudges and hey, have you thought about doing this? I mean, there are great people. Sandy Denton, she was going to be conference director that year. And she said, we were getting calls for leadership applications. She said, seriously, Kim, think about it. And even Jim Wilkins talked to me about it. And he called me a lanyap, and that was so touching. If you knew who Jim Wilkins was, great man in HR. I got to work with him on the on-site committee. Back then it was registration. And then you, Bruce, when you encouraged me to consider being a mentor, and I'm like, you want me to be a mentor? But it was a great opportunity. And that's how I really got to meet Chrissy Rogers and bond with her. And I mean, still today, we share experiences whenever needed. I'm always there for her. I told her once the semester was up, I said, don't think I'm not available to you beyond this point. I'm always going to be available to you. But there have been some really amazing people to help encourage my development, the organization putting us through the DISC leadership program. I got to be in that with you, Bruce. Thank you for helping organize that.
Yep. You're referring to Leadership Links. We started that leadership develop program back in 2015. Wow. It's interesting. So Lifelines, when I first heard this term, and I think I've also heard that on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Lifelines.
That might have been it.
Hold the audience, remove 2 questions. But anyway, but when first time I heard Lifelines, I was thinking people, right? Hey, I want to reach out to these different people. And although that's true, you mentioned your first mentioning of Lifelines is organizations. And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's also a lifeline. You have DallasHR, you have SHRM National, Texas SHRM. You're talking about the HRSouthwest conference. So lifelines can be absolutely everywhere. They can be an organization. They can be a network outside the company. Like, for example, our climb group, you have some lifelines in that group. And then also, what about internal, inside the organization? You can have lifelines there too, right?
Oh, yes.
So, what are the things I want our audience to hear from you is that a couple things. Number one, the importance of walking slowly through the crowd, building those relationships, and saying yes when opportunities come up. Like, for example, when I said, hey, would you like to be in the mentor program or be part of this development program? You say yes, and then all of a sudden you have these experiences, right? But also the thing a lot of times I hear from people is that I am so busy. I'm busy. I don't have time to do that. But I always like to say, listen, you got to find time, because that's where the real growth is. And that's really where the joy is in your career. What do you have to say about that?
That is spot on. you never know. Don't knock volunteering until you're in it. Oftentimes, volunteering is a very small time commitment, maybe a couple of hours a month, maybe an hour or two a week. But what's an hour or two a week? How do you make time? You block it off on your calendar and you commit to yourself. That's your time. I'm one of those people, I get a ton of emails. I could spend a whole day just going through emails. Some people, they want me to network on social media and play games. And if you know me, I don't really do that because I can really get sucked into a time drain. And next thing I know, I'm running out of time for me and some of my goals. And one thing I've learned this past year, especially, is have your own personal goals and make time for that. I spent so many years letting my life go by that I kind of neglected some of my own personal goals. So this year's been game changing. I mean, not only have I grown professionally over the years with my volunteering with HRSouthwest conference in DallasHR, I went through a conversion in my faith. So my husband and I could worship God together. And that was something I put off for a long time. And so, yay, I've got that done. And next goal, I've started learning Spanish. I'm halfway through my life. I took French in high school, and it's just not doing much of anything for me right here in Texas. So I thought, I want to learn Spanish. So I'm starting to learn it. It's self-paced, but I'll dedicate a little bit of time, not a lot, but a little time each day, and learn a little bit of Spanish.
I love that. I love that a lot. When you say I'm working on personal goals, all of a sudden you got my attention because I am goal driven. And what I want to know from you is, because you have so much on your plate, what all of a sudden drove you to start pursuing these meaningful goals? Was there something that happened, or were you just like, it's time? Have you always been a goal driven? Talk about that as a leader.
I think I've always been goal driven on some level, but we tend to get distracted, sideswiped. For me, it was 3 months after my husband and I got married. He was hit by an 18-wheeler and our lives changed. And I had to give him more of my attention in caring for him. This past year, one of my coworkers she was really sweet. She passed away here on the job. It wasn't COVID related, and it was extremely unexpected. And it reminded me of something that my dad always used to say, raising me. He was ultimate mentor. I mean, he gave me my foundations for life. And one of the things that he always told my brother and I and my mom, he said, always make sure your soul is right with God, because he will come like a thief in the night, meaning you never know when, unexpected. And having my coworker pass away like that, I realized my life is going and time doesn't stop. And if I've got goals, it's time to give time to me, and that's okay. I still have my job. I still help other people. I still volunteer, but in my family, I give time to them, but it's okay to block out some me time. My me time, part of that is with climbers. Every weekend morning, I get up and I read in my book. It's my quiet time because most everybody else is asleep, and I can enjoy that enrichment. But I met my goal of converting to Catholicism because it was important to me to worship in church with my husband. And we both achieved that goal. He was raised Catholic, but he had never finished the steps of his past Easter vigil. We both got to share First Communion together. And that was a very big emotional moment for both of us. It was great. But you've got to have me time. That's your de-stressor. And that's how you grow. And you won't wake up later on and wonder what happened. It's nobody's fault if you don't make the time for it. And how do you volunteer and do everything that you want? You make it happen. You know, if I can work full time and go to college part time and get my degree, you know, so I sit here and look now back on that. And it's like, how in the world was I going to college at night while working full time? Well, I was a lot younger and had more energy. But you find time to do the things that are important to you. And you just have to remember that you're important too.
Yeah, I've had many wise people. They all have the same philosophy, and they said, if you want to get it done, you just need to schedule it. You know, you're what I call a lifelong learner. I mean, I noticed on LinkedIn, you just continue to develop. You've taken this LinkedIn learning in Zoom. You've taken LinkedIn learning in remote work, in building resilience. You're part of the climb group. You're talking about all these different goals that you're pursuing. What drives you as a leader? What drives you to do this?
I think what drives me is learning something new. I will never know everything. You will never hear that phrase come out of my mouth that I know everything, because I don't. I love learning and growing, but a lot of the LinkedIn learning stuff, and kudos to you for noticing that. But a lot of the LinkedIn learning comes from how can I serve my coworkers better? And a lot of that Zoom, how to use Zoom, how to use Teams and stuff like that. I was doing that while we were working from home. And I wanted to know how I realized, okay, if I'm going to keep my lines of communication open beyond what my company's doing and what platform we use, I need to expand that beyond Teams and learn Zoom and learn WebEx. And I took advantage of that time to just stay on top of things, but take some time out to learn and grow. And in doing this, let me tell you, when I came back to the office, my IT guy was like all oogly. He says, yay, you're in technology.
Wow. So basically what you're saying is what drives you is the more you know, the more you can help others. That's what it
exactly
sounds like.
That's it. Bingo.
Love that. Oh man, I love that. You know, one last thing while we're on this subject, I want to stay here just for a second, because this Lifelines, I think this is so important. You've developed, we talked about the different associations you've been part of. You continue to reach out to them, and it gives you confidence knowing that, hey, I'm a call away from any of these organizations. One thing I do like to talk about is mentors. I know that you've mentored in the DallasHR program, but as far as like people that have mentored you or helped you get to where you are today, anybody you want to recognize or anything in particular that made them stand out?
Oh my goodness. I always have to go back to my daddy, because he laid my foundations for life. And I know that some people are like, oh, of course, her daddy. But seriously, the things about him that I loved was, one, he was a man of faith. And regardless of what your faith is, that is where your core morals and virtues and what you believe in, that's where it starts. And just about any religion or faith, whatever you believe in or what route you choose, at the core is treating other people with a mutual respect and compassion. And I think that's really what we do here in human resources. If it's not, maybe we should be. But I mean, that's my direction. That's my core. That's my foundation, my faith. And he was very steadfast with that and instilling that in me. And second of all, he was in the military. I was not, but he raised me with the self-discipline that is so often learned and gained while serving in the military. And anybody who served in the military, thank you so much.
I second that.
But everybody in my immediate family has served in some branch of the military. And so, I mean, I was surrounded by this self-discipline foundation. And that's how you create your goals and achieve them. You don't just start them, you complete them, see them through. And that's what brings you your happiness, your success, when you can look back and say, yes, I did that. And so self-discipline, he taught me about that. And the last thing, he was a juvenile probation officer for Dallas County for his career, 30 years. And he taught me to believe in giving people second chances. So many people are imperfect. And when there is a genuine desire to become better, then he taught me that person deserves that much. And to give second chances to people when warranted. And so that's why I think, even though he wasn't an HR professional, he certainly laid the groundwork for me to be a very successful one. But there's other people along the way. I mean, Bruce, I don't think I ever told you this, but the thing I love about you, and that has shaped me here, you pick up on little nuggets from other people. I always talk about leveling up on the people you associate with. You always enter the room with a smile on your face, and it just sets the tone. And it's infectious, and I love it, and it works. I do it here. I never told you that, but I stole that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. I appreciate that so much. That's so kind of you. Yes, you know what? You're right. I love that, the way you said that. People that can like walk in with that positivity sets the tone, right, for others. And I think that's a great opportunity that all of us, not just HR professionals, I'm just talking about leaders, have in our organizations to walk in and set the tone in a positive way. And so, listen, that is fantastic. I love the last part. And I know why now. I mean, you had an incredible mentor to lay the groundwork and giving people second chances. I mean, come on. Is that not fantastic? I love that. So how about, you talk about, volunteer leadership. You talk about leading in your organization, but what about leading you? And I always like to ask that question because I feel like leadership, well, it's every day. And, some days are easier than others, right? And so what's a day in the life of Kim look like? I know you said earlier you like to read. Is there a daily practice that you do every day that helps you keep on track as a leader?
You've heard me tell you before, working for a small company there, you can plan your day out, and when you come in and start, it goes nothing like that. So flexibility is key there. But for me, and having that core foundation with my faith, I think I have to go back to that. In my bathroom, I have a necklace with a cross on it, and it's hung next to my mirror. So when I get up in the morning, first thing, there's my reflection. Even more so, when I come into work, one of my coworkers, awesome lady, Rosemary Mosqueda, I've worked with her for a long time here. She taught me years ago, always remember your thank you, Lords. So often we're blessed with things and we don't think about how much of that might be behind God. And if you're a Christian, you believe God has a plan for each of us, and how often we forget to thank him. So I wrote on a little sticky note that I have tacked up on my little bulletin board next to my computer here. Thank you, Lord. So when I come in, one of the first things I see as I reach over to turn on my laptop is thank you, Lord. I may have a mountain of work to do, but thank you, Lord, that I have that mountain of work to do. And, there may be something coming up, non-discrimination testing, getting ready for that. Nobody likes that. But thank you, Lord, that I have this opportunity to work on that. Every day is a new opportunity. It's not just work. I hate to call it work. It's opportunities. And I thank him that I have that. I'm able to provide for my family because of these opportunities. And I have to go back to my roots, go back to my foundation, and give thanks where it's deserved.
Oh, I love that. It's opportunity. Oh, that is so fantastic. Let me ask you a question. I always like to ask my guests if there was ever any advice. I mean, you shared a lot today. Is there any advice that you received? Maybe it was from your father, maybe it was from a coworker, maybe it was from someone in your lifelines. The advice was so good, you just always find yourself sharing that with others.
There are so many different great nuggets that I've taken. When it comes to leadership, I'll have to go back to Sandy Denton. And if she's listening to this, she'll be like, what?
And by the way, Sandy Denton, I served on the HRSouthwest Conference Special Events Committee under Sandy Denton and got
That's
to
when I met
experience
you.
her leadership. She's fantastic. Yes, exactly. She's with Overhead Doors. She's fantastic. Go ahead.
Yes. So when it was her year that I first stepped up into a leadership role, and one of the things that she said was, when you find the right people to support you, your role as a leader becomes easy.
Mm.
When you have the weight of the conference on your shoulders and they're like, oh my goodness, how do you do it? How you do it? You find the right people and you support them. You're the servant leader. But if you find the right people who have that same passion and they want the success and they want to grow, you find the right people and it makes your job as a leader easy. And that's kind of what I did. I followed in her footsteps with that. That's what I took with my year as conference director. And not a lot of people know this, but it was the 75th anniversary. And 50% of my board of directors had not served on the board yet. It was my time to be the leader and support them, take the chance on them. They had the passion, they had the yearning to want to do it. And I said, we can do this. It's going to be a great year. And at the end of it, we spent some time reflecting on our aha moments at our director's dinner. And it was such a moving night.
Oh, that's fantastic. I absolutely love that. That's a great story and great advice. That advice goes right back to Lifelines.
Yes,
It goes right back that you were surrounding yourself and then you were supporting that group, and they were in turn were your lifelines, and you were a lifeline for them. As well. And so that's so good. Hey, I always like to ask this question too, and that is, there's a lot of people that I talk to that are just getting into HR. They could be in mid-career, they could be early career. And I always like to ask people that have had success, if you were going to share something for someone listening today, that maybe they're in a recruiting role, maybe they're in a generalist role, but they're just looking to continue to grow in their leadership and eventually be a director or maybe even a VP or CHRO, or who knows, maybe the CEO. What is something you would share that they should continue making that part of their everyday to continue their growth?
Listen to the people that support you and always continue to ask, what do they need from you? What can you give them to help them be successful? Be a listener, be humble, and don't ever think that you know everything. And based on that, always continue to grow, learn, never stop growing.
That's fantastic. Oh man, that's so good. I shared that the time goes by super fast. And so now we're going to pivot or shift gears and move into the area, what I call it's time to accelerate. And so I'm going to ask you just a few fun questions as we kind of end the segment. First question, would you rather read a book or listen to a podcast?
Oh, I'm a big person.
Books all the way, right? Hey, do you have any favorites? And by the way, we talked about Climb Group. We read books in Climb. Any favorite books come to mind?
There are so many. the HR Rising that we just finished up, I love that. Leadership with a Heart, The Power of Moments. There have been so many wonderful books I've read with this group. So,
Hey, let me ask you a question since we're talking about this just real quick. Our climb group, it's a book club. Tell me, what's one or two things that you get out of belonging to a group like that? Just for the listeners to, if they thought about being a part of a book club or a leadership group, what do you get out of that?
are you kidding? More lifelines.
I love it. Absolutely.
It's people that you share a common interest with. These people in this particular group, they have a desire to continue to learn and become better leaders. And that's like me. And so because we share this common interest, we have great discussions. When you have the coffee chats every other Friday mornings. I don't always get to attend those, but if something happens, but I love them when I get to. It is the best way to start the weekend.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of times, even though it is a book club, we may start off by maybe talking about a book, but we end up talking about just life, right? It could be life inside the organization or outside the organization. But one of the things that I always like to share with people is that you need those lifelines, what you're talking about. You need to have those outside the workplace. You need to be able to talk to people just about your everydays. And so, no, I appreciate you sharing that. How about what are you grateful for? I know you've talked a lot about gratitude today. What are you most grateful for?
I am grateful for everybody that has ever played any role in my life, because the way I look at it, you're a part of my history and you're a part of what has helped shape me into being the person that I am today.
That's fantastic. How about, 2020, we talked about how hard of a year that was. And here we are in 2021, we're in Q2. We're still in a pandemic, but we're navigating through that. What are you most excited about in 2021?
I am excited about new possibilities. I have a hope. I want this pandemic behind us. And, I continue to pray for the scientists and our leaders, to continue to find ways to help us not get sick. I mean, the pandemic has just been horrible. And I want this year to be the year that my husband and I get to go on a vacation. We were like driving to Galveston. We were an hour outside of Galveston when I think we were on the outskirts of Houston when we finally got President Trump said no more cruises. And my phone was just blowing up. Everyone said, "Did you hear President Trump said no cruises?" And I said, I am going until, I hear the bells ring or something. And when we were an hour outside of Galveston, that's when the cruise line said, sorry, it's canceled. And it's like, to be so close.
Oh my goodness. Hey, let me ask you this. What energizes you?
What energizes me? People, faith, every day I start off in the scripture, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. And there it is.
Energizing. I love it.
No matter what happens, I'm going to rejoice about today being here. It's an opportunity.
That's fantastic. Okay. Here's the last question, Kim. And so Kim Pisciotta, 10 years older, is knocking at your front office door and you got to go let her in. What's she going to say to you?
The first thing that comes to mind is you're in the home stretch, baby. but the biggest thing I think would be thank you for the joy. Thank you for the opportunities you've presented, the opportunities that you've given yourself, the goals and the joy that you've experienced along the way. And by that, I mean, making those harder decisions to do the right things instead of taking the easy way out and just saying, I'm going to do what I want. I've always strived to do the right thing and challenge myself so that 10 years from now, I can look back and say, that's a life well lived. It wasn't wasted.
Man, that is so good. Kim, you are definitely driving in the leadership lane. I appreciate you coming on and talking about Lifelines. I think that a lot of people are going to get a lot out of what you had to say, and maybe to give them some confidence or some courage to continue to expand those Lifelines. If someone wanted to connect with you or learn more about you, how would they connect?
I would say the easiest way is going to be LinkedIn. Gemmy Industries, Kim Pisciotta, and connect with me and shoot me a message.
That's fantastic. And I'll put your link in the show notes so people can click on that and for a direct link. So, hey, listen, I appreciate you coming on and just sharing your wisdom and perspective around leadership and connecting with people. And I just really appreciate you just being part of the show. And most importantly, I appreciate your friendship.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. I appreciate you.
Awesome. I cannot wait to share this. I'll talk to you later.
All right.